it was everything that we were hoping that this massacre was going to be.
Careful. You don't want to say, this is what I wanted this massacre to be.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
from a story perspective,
from a
not because I wanted to see people die.
Yeah, from a fictitious story perspective.
We needed to. Yeah, he's the one that likes the massacres.
Yeah, he's the one. Get him in the comments.
Welcome to Galaxy Bound Podcast. We are talking about Andor episodes 7 through 9. 7, 8, and 9, I should clarify. We are missing someone. Ben was really busy this week, and we kept trying to shuffle around the days and ended up just deciding to leave him out this time. So we have Jacob to replace him.
Hey.
No, he's not replacing really, but because he was going to be a guest on here anyways, but I think that was probably for the best to just have Ben not be stressed more than he already was with his schedule this week. So anyways, we're going to talk about our initial thoughts of each episode. I kind of want to split into each episode for this one because a lot happens in each of them.
I like that.
So I put a recap on our doc here just to kind of keep us focused. So yeah, this is a year after the last episode finished, obviously. Each of these arcs is a year later. And what I kind of anticipated, what we all anticipated, ended up being true. Like, the Empire was letting them take their weapons from that heist. Mm-hmm. That's why it seemed so easy. It's like the Empire was letting it happen. We see the rebellion kind of taking more of a shape on Yavin, which was really cool to see.
It was cool to see, but disappointing to not see it blossom from the beginning rather than just going off of what happened the last time I was here when those idiots were on there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping to see them there running around. But.
Yeah, I was kind of... they kind of implied that they died from the creature.
Yeah.
But I was kind of expecting, maybe just one of them, at least.
Yeah. Or just, gravestones of their names or something like that. And just being like the founders of Yavin. Yeah. It's like, oh, they were actually important.
That would have been hilarious. Yeah, so the reason of that being on Yavin kind of is random then from the first episode. Unless we just haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a callback in the next episodes. But yeah, that was kind of weird. But it still was good to see, they're on Yavin now and pretty much established for the most part. But Saul wasn't there, obviously.
Well,
but we know that he's never going to, so.
Yeah, he's not going to be there.
But I think that since this takes place before Rebels, it is still, it's not the Alliance yet. They're just still, I can't think of the word.
Like a backwater group.
Yeah, they're still, they're finally starting to become a military force, but they don't have everyone aligned yet,
Stragglers.
Yeah, so that's where Mon Mothma is going to come in. So yeah, I thought the first episode was really good in terms of, it was just more setup, but I feel like it was even better setup compared to the last episodes that have all felt like setup the entire time.
Yeah.
Is it this episode? It has to be this episode where the Force Healer is in, because I thought that was the most interesting part.
I think so.
Because that's the title.
It's near the end.
Yes, it is. Because it wouldn't make sense if it wasn't.
Yeah, so...
Because they make their titles pretty in your face.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, because she wasn't a Jedi. It was just a person who...
was force sensitive.
Maybe, heightened force sensitivity, and was just, doing her best of, trying to, heal people. But it was... Whatever she did to Cassian, it didn't fully heal it. So it's not like she was a Jedi Master or whatever. It was just, It
was interesting to see his, anger towards it.
Yeah.
It was almost like a mirror towards Han Solo at how he's I don't believe in that crap or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really interesting to see the comparison with that, with their two characters of like, what if Han Solo joined the rebellion early kind of vibes? Like, would he go down that road? But obviously he didn't. He just became a smuggler and got paired up with Chewie and saves the day much later.
I thought they said Judy.
Not again.
Han and Judy.
Han and Chewie.
Yeah. I definitely could see that.
Yeah, he was just so angry about it, and that's that's a lot of things with when people have the general rule of don't talk about religion or politics, which is this whole show, that people get just so blatantly angry when people even bring that kind of stuff up, that they just don't want to face that or have any conviction or choose a side.
Yeah.
Which I think is Cassian's whole deal, is that he's just in this to survive. That's why the whole episode he's just like, all right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get out. And then when Willman comes in and is like, Luthien wants to talk to you, and he's like, nope. And yeah, I think it's very interesting that they would put that kind of thing in there, that he just is like so adamantly against all that stuff.
And I don't think that's unique in the galaxy at this point, because like that's one of the big like propaganda moves from the Empire, is to like demonize the Force and use it as a means of like fear and stuff to control people with.
Yeah.
And to demonize the Jedi and their history as well.
Yeah.
So he probably...
Because nobody really knows, obviously, that he's a Sith Lord, so that's a good strategy for them to be like, don't bother with it. I'll take care of it. You know?
Yeah.
I'll deal with that.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty common. But obviously the rebellion has ties to people that were like really good friends with the Jedi in the Clone Wars and stuff. So
yeah,
so that makes sense that most of them were there like, yeah, heal me, and obviously they would see that it was affecting them, but Cassian was still resistant to it, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like it was clearly helping.
Well, I thought it healed him, because he was like,
because
like the next day he like moved his arm around and he was like, what the
injury was still there, but you could tell it was better. And then he was like
moving it around,
clearly moving it around better. And then Bix was like, it's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And like the only time we've ever seen anything related to the Force in this series so far, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like, yeah, I commend them for making it purely a humanistic standpoint of Star Wars and not mentioning the Force, not doing Jedi stuff at all, but like, just dropping that little inlet there.
Yeah.
And
it, because it fits that era so well because of what I just said. Like,
yeah.
Nobody, like the Jedi that do exist are like trying to keep themselves hidden as best they can. And like most people either didn't ever come in contact with a Jedi or anyone that had to do with the Force, or they were tricked to believe that they were, evil and, tried to assassinate the Emperor and everything.
Yeah.
So they're trying to stay away from it. But
yeah. I was kind of hoping that they would just drop like some like redheaded guy just walking in the background. You know what I'm talking about.
Like Cal?
Yeah. I was just kind of hoping that you would just see some redheaded guy like with a droid on his back or something in the background just walking past and be like, oh, he survived.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or one of the side characters in the game would just walk by or something like that and just be like, oh, that's a nod to it. Because like
a side character I could see.
Yeah.
Not him though.
Or yeah, I don't know.
Because he would be like more powerful than Luke at this point. Like Luke hadn't even started his training yet.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Then he would be like the lead Jedi in the rebellion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Then he would, be somehow linked to Luke. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. But
I think what the show does really well is to go back on your non-force talk in this show, is make you feel like you're part of the show, like you're in the battles,
like you can relate to it.
Yeah, like you're not a force user, so you're gonna make connections. Fair.
I've opened an automatic door with my hands before.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just feel connected to the characters in the room. In the show. It's just really cool.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I mean, that's why I feel like I like this show so much. It's just because I feel like, well, obviously I don't line up with the religion too that the series and all the shows and all the movies have, in common with that. So I don't share the sentiment, so I can't relate to it, obviously. But yeah, that's 100% of the reason why I like this show so much. Is just because everybody's just humanistic and trying to survive, which is speaking to a lot of modern times, and everybody trying to rebel or trying to stay alive, trying to survive, not trying to get too involved or getting way too involved to the point to where like their family is on the line or something like that with Mon Mothma. Like, I was also kind of disappointed that we didn't get to see, like, the wedding thing happened and then daughter disappears.
Well,
like no talk of her at all.
Didn't she say she didn't want to talk to her ever again?
Well, I don't know. I think she said something like, I wish you were drunk or whatever. I think that was like the last time that they openly talked to each other in the show.
I could have sworn she said something like, I don't want to. Was I just projecting onto that? Like, I thought she said, like, I don't want to see you again or something like that.
I don't know. It could also be the case, but I don't remember that because the wedding episode was the last time that I was on. And yeah, I because I watched it twice, so that's why I remember it so well.
Yeah.
I watched it on my own and I watched it with you guys. So I think the last words that they spoke together were, or that the daughter said was, I wish you were drunk. And then Mon Mothma was like, get behind me. I'm supposed to go first. And then they,
yeah, she turned into a man.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I would be more annoyed if they kept bringing them back in because it's pretty clear that they're not going to be the focus of this story at all.
For sure. And my point in saying that is it was just kind of just a drag, and I mean, it did highlight how much Mon Mothma gave up and sacrificed, like giving her daughter towards the cause to be able to have the money to be able to give the rebellion by sacrificing her daughter to a skeezy dude's son. But, they made it such a big deal. But I did want to highlight also that when her husband was walking around with her in these episodes, it might have been the last episode or the last three episodes, but I did want to highlight, like, just briefly touch on it. Like, they seemed better than they did, like, interacting with each other. Maybe Mon Mothma was just like completely shut off to the point where she was just like, he's just a friend, whatever, or I don't know. But I did like that brief moment that her husband looked at her freaking out on the dance floor, being completely blacked out, drunk or whatever, and him like clapping along and then like stopping and being like, uh-oh, she's messed up. And then, the next 3 episodes happened and like they were like buddy essentially, and he wasn't being a total pig the whole time. He was just like, yep, let's do your thing, let's go do your stuff, like it's boring, it's whatever, but let's go do it.
Yeah, well, he also enjoyed doing all of that stuff way more than she did. So I think he was like excited to go to all those meetings and like,
I think he said
those
it, I think if I recall, he said it was terrible. Like he said it was all boring. He was just like, okay, we've been to like 50 of these or some outrageous number he said, and they were like, like every new senator or something like has one of these or something, and we got to keep powering through them. And then they run into Bale, and he's like, "This is my last one. I'm out." And then they're like, "Oh, this is our last one. Okay, well, whatever." And it was what's his face? Their new in-laws or whatever.
Yeah.
And that scene was crazy. But anyways,
Yeah.
reverting back to these episodes.
Yeah. So we can move on to episode 8, where like the bulk of everything hits the fan.
I'd say this was my favorite episode.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It was everything that we were hoping that this massacre was going to be.
Well, careful. You don't want to say, this is what I wanted this massacre to be.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
from a story perspective,
from a
not because I wanted to see people die.
Yeah, from a fictitious story perspective.
We needed to. Yeah, he's the one that likes the massacres.
Yeah, he's the one. Get him in the comments.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. From a fictitious story perspective, it was very conclusive to, I think, what we expected to happen. To be like, okay, yep,
yeah,
this happened. This is exactly. And I did want to also touch on, I had it in my notes, that just the direct mirroring of it from somebody that I watched earlier said that it mirrored Les Mis. I don't know if you guys ever watched that at all, but
I have, but it's been a really long time.
But it was like mirroring, I think it was France. Excuse me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like France and England or something fighting. And just like the comparisons and the contrast of them singing and waving the flags and things like that. And like somebody said that the guy with the cap that was like that
started singing.
Well, yeah, the guy that started singing. Yeah. He was like a conglomeration of all the main characters of Les Mis or something like that, except for the cop. But because obviously the cop was Cyril that was trying to find Jean Valjean. But you guys don't know that a whole lot. But another contrast was Nazi Germany with France and them colliding, because I looked up like their language because they were speaking it pretty well, and I noticed that like it was like somebody said that it was like French and some Finnish and like German dialect or something, or phonetics or something like that, to just kind of make it sound more French. But I think it was entirely a made-up language. Yeah, but they spoke it so well.
Yeah, we were saying last week that they probably hired like French actors and just had them use their natural accent. Because there was obviously a lot of like French phonetics in there, and they said that they had some like German undertone to it to just make it contrast what Nazi Germany and France and blah blah blah. Yeah, and just to make it more unique rather than just straight up French.
And speaking of that, the dad that was the representative of the Gorman rebellion. Yeah. He was in Inglourious Bastards. He was one of the Nazis that got knocked in the head by the bear Jew. Yeah. But it was very, very interesting to see that he was also in there. But yeah, this was my favorite. Cyril's story came to a head and conclusion. Yeah. With I did want to. We just said this downstairs, but I was right about almost every prediction that I had when it came to Cyril and Dedra's relationship. Yeah. That one of them was going to choose the Empire, and the other one was going to be like, "This is not what I was here for. Like, I was here to do law and order, not genocide."
Yeah. Yeah. Which was so beautifully written with like his reaction, and then like his reaction kind of waking her up a little bit, because she was sitting there like watching it all happen. She's like, kind of like Anakin, like, what have I done?
Yeah.
But like in her mind,
And then
like
has a
she was
panic
clearly
attack.
upset. Yeah, and then she has a panic attack. And
like
yeah.
her like trying to like undo her collar or whatever,
Yeah.
and then straighten out her clothes.
Yeah, she's freaking out.
Yeah, she was essentially just having like an OCD attack, just
Yeah.
like being like, okay, I need to straighten out here and like
Yeah.
get myself in order and blah blah blah. Just do my ritual to make myself feel like I'm proper and prim,
Yeah.
but I'm screwed up.
I was not expecting him to choke her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was crazy.
Yeah.
that was so intense, and like you said, beautifully written.
Yes.
His reaction to being like, you used me, and then she was like, you didn't,
You like the
didn't-
promotions.
Yeah, you like
Yeah.
those promotions, and like it just, clicked all the clicks just went
Yeah.
all in his brain, just being like, oh, you've been using me from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like I'm just a puppet. This
Yeah.
isn't a relationship. Good luck, Deirdre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with him choking her, just like is a reminder of like he's not a good guy. Like he's still a bad guy. But
But he's also like,
he's being taken advantage of, and he's not to the level of being okay with genocide either.
yeah,
Oh, for
like,
sure.
It's
Yeah.
not a black and
morals.
white kind of thing, but
Yeah.
he's also
He's
not
still-
a good guy.
Still on the side of the Empire,
Yeah.
but not okay with what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit of repentance happened, but
Yeah. Like he's
Not
always
enough.
been about law and order. And like,
for the Empire.
well, just I think in general,
Mm-hmm.
because before he was just he wasn't for the Empire. He was the
He's a
corpo.
He's a rent-a-cop.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
basically just a rent-a-cop, which was like under the authority of the Empire, but like he wasn't technically like working for the Empire
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
season
just-
1
He's
until
a
the end,
contractor, I think is what they said.
something like that. Basically, like planet security,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and so he's always just been about general law and order. Like you break the law, you go to jail,
Yeah.
straight to jail,
Straight to jail.
no trial, no nothing. So that's kind of where his heart has always been.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, to see them just kill everybody is like, that's not what I signed up for. But
Yeah.
then, like, that's not what she signed up for either.
It's
Yeah,
true.
I mean,
She did.
she knew about it,
Yes.
but I don't think it hit her until Cyril was like, wake up.
Yeah.
Like, this is happening.
Well, I
and then
don't
she was
think-
just out there just going in and out on the balcony,
I
being
think
like,
what
okay,
she
okay.
originally planned was to have
Change.
for them to take over the planet and remove people,
Mm-hmm.
not to kill them all,
Yeah.
because they just want that cowkite that's in the ground. And they're
Yeah.
in that original meeting, they're like, well, if they're not going to let us take it, then we're going to have to take it by force.
Yeah. She wanted to be the scalpel for the Empire to cut it out and try to make everything nice and neat, like pen strokes. And then the Empire just came in and just threw a bomb and everything and just,
I think she
created an
was
insurgency.
using Cyril to do all her work, but she was being used by the Empire to do all their work.
And like we said before, or what you said before, was that she was the scapegoat. Like she essentially started it all. They, like we said before, were like, okay, these are the heroes that they lifted up or whatever. Like these are the martyrs for the Empire and things like that. And they emphasized that in the Senate scene, and they emphasized that on the journalists, and there was also
the
just
reporters.
there was also just a mirror of like what Dedra's boss, I forget his name's too long. Dedra's
Partagaz, I
boss,
think.
Partagaz, yeah.
yeah. What Partagaz said almost exactly mirrored what the reporters were saying.
Yeah.
And I forget exactly what they said, but it was just almost word for word.
Yeah, like clearly they had hired or like paid them to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how modern time war reporters do that, but like it's essentially a compare and contrast, the like almost mirroring like these insurgents were here and just started this fight. It was a violent protest, blah, blah, blah. And I've been involved in some protests, not violent ones, very peaceful ones. But then you go to the news the next day and they're like, a fight broke out at this protest. And I'm like, I was there the whole time.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? No fights broke out. Nothing happened. It was completely peaceful. Whatever you saw on the news was old stuff from like 2008. But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very scary, very eye-opening, and very convicting at a lot of the stuff that was happening. That is happening in modern day times and happened
that episode
100
and the next
years ago.
episode as well.
Yeah,
with Mon Mothma's speech and everything as well, which we'll get into that.
Yeah.
They did show that Mon Mothma, Bail comes up to her and is like,
tear the shit open.
He was like, I know you have to do this, and you're the one that is the only one that can do it, and you're gonna have to leave right after. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, well, you need to come with me. And he's like, I can't.
Not till next year, is what he said.
Yeah.
Give me a year or whatever he said. Yeah. That was crazy.
Which we know where he eventually ends up.
Yeah, he just looks up at the sky and he's dust in the wind.
I mean, we do know he goes to Yavin in Rogue One, so he does make it there eventually. But yeah, he still is part of the Senate.
Yeah. Oh, I did want to touch on
A New Hope comes around.
How I know this is the next episode that we're about to talk about, but in episode 9, how I feel like they were gonna retcon things with Mon Mothma going to Yavin instead of Dantooine, like in Rebels. Mm-hmm. But they had like this like short, like 3-second scene from the current, I think he's the commander of Yavin at the time, or at least Cassian's commander.
Draven.
How they talked about like, oh, she's gonna, like, that was speech number 1 at the Senate, and then they took her and they were like, okay, we're gonna make her do another one, and then they were like, oh yeah, she's gonna come to Yavin, and then they get in that fight with the drone, or not drone, but the whatever it is.
I have a whole section dedicated to retcons.
Yeah, and it was, I think, what they said after the fact, not in the show, but they were like, in Rebels, she was supposed to go to Yavin, but they got caught, and then they had to jump out to Dantooine, they killed whoever was following them in that nebula, and then they end up on Dantooine, and then they do the message, and then they go to Yavin or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't remember the whole thing, but
so I watched that episode after the 3 Andor episodes, and her speech.
It is different. I guess we're going to the retcon section.
No, it's fine. I mean, we're here for 2 more hours.
The speech is slightly different, but says the same thing in a different way.
I think it was because they did that because only so many people were watching the Senate hearing, and then they said that they wanted to broadcast it to the entire galaxy.
Yeah, they implied that there was going to be another speech.
Yeah, because I think it didn't reach everybody's ears because they shut it off, obviously.
Yeah.
And then they did the speech, and it was like broadcast to everyone that had, a hologram.
Yeah. So in the Rebels episode, they're listening, Ezra and Zeb are listening to the HoloNet news, and hears Mon Mothma's speech on the news.
Oh.
Yeah.
Before they get her.
Yes. And then they get her and all that stuff happens. Then she goes to Dantooine and does a speech.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's actually 3 speeches. So there's the speech that we see in Andor in the Senate.
Where she condemns
Palpatine.
Yeah.
And then the speech that they watch is actually different because, like he said, like it probably didn't get out on the news.
Mm-hmm. And that's where she resigns from the Senate.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
on Dantooine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's 2 speeches.
No. It's on her way to meet
Because she's still in the ship.
the Rebels crew.
No.
Yeah.
I thought she was on the ship with the people.
Yes, and then the third speech is that one.
She resigns in the speech on Dantooine. But they're all just hovering over Dantooine. They're not
they're on
Dantooine.
the ship.
Yeah.
Is that the one where she like tries to get the alliance all together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the third speech.
What's the second speech?
I just said
Mm.
the one
So-
that she makes on the way to the Rebels crew
So the first one's in Andor. The second one is...
is not on screen anywhere,
okay.
but it's the one that they hear on the news.
Oh.
That's
But
why
it's
it's
the
different.
same speech.
Okay.
As Andor?
It's similar.
Yeah, but
I
not the
watched
same.
Star Wars Explains episode review,
So did I.
and he says it's the same speech, different.
I mean,
way of saying
it would probably have to be just
Yeah.
because they didn't know Andor was going to come out at the time.
Yes.
So
they
I'm
also
sure,
want it to
I'm
be
sure
a
they
little
flubbed
better.
some things and overlapped some things, but in a lot of the reviews that I watched, that they said there was just 2 speeches, and the one from Rebels that they overheard on off screen was the same speech, but the writer for Andor was like, do I really have to do this? Like, do I really have to
Yeah,
do
like,
the
it's
same
a
speech?
completely different style of writing.
I think he said verbatim, he was like, do I really have to do the same effing speech? Like, I think that was like verbatim. Do I really have to do
Yeah,
that?
sounds like it.
And then at the end, he was like, all right, yeah, I guess I'll,
Yeah.
bow down to what happened in Rebels.
In the end, like it doesn't really matter that much. Like,
Yeah.
it could just be one speech,
2 speech,
but
two,
it could
2
be
or 3.
2. Like, but there is a different speech of like her like trying to get the alliance together,
Okay.
which
That's
is
the
different.
Dantooine.
Yeah, which is different than the one where she condemns the Emperor.
Yeah. Okay.
So like you could believe that there's only 2 or there's 3. Like it doesn't really matter that much. But
Yeah. Because I mean, they tried their best to kind of mesh it all together.
because in the episode they say like we need to get her off and like you need to be preparing your next speech,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
said that in the episode, but
Yeah.
that could have just been the Dantooine speech
And
or
Mon Mothma, who plays Mon Mothma in the show, is the same one as Rogue One, right? They're the same person?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because I watched it. I watched a brief overview of.
and in Rebels. She does the voice.
I watched her brief. Oh yeah, she does. That's why in all of her interviews, she's so on top of it. Like anytime they do quizzes or whatever, she's just like, I think it's this one. Everybody's like, I don't know. Like this was 7 years ago.
Well, she was also in a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
You
I didn't know that.
Really?
Huh.
Yeah,
She's
that's
been-
where her first casting was as Mon Mothma.
Okay.
She's been in it for a while. For what, 20 years?
Yeah, it was a scene with
That's
her
insane.
and Padme and Bale and maybe like someone else
I didn't
talking
realize it was
about like
her.
what we're gonna do with the whole
I've seen
Empire
that scene,
situation.
but I did not know it was her.
Yeah, that's her.
That's insane. I mean, obviously they couldn't use the original actor because she was probably like 70 at the time.
But yeah, probably older than that.
Yeah.
She looked 70 in the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
She probably wasn't even around anymore.
Yeah, that's probably true. Probably not with us anymore. But overall, episode 8, incredible.
Yeah.
Would have moved me to tears
Yeah.
if I was
if
in
I
the
felt
right.
anything.
Yeah, if I feel anything anymore. No, I just wasn't in the right headspace to feel emotion on top of that, just because I feel like a lot of the I wouldn't say major, a lot of the heightened emotions that we felt a lot in our country, at least, was 5 years ago, 4 years ago. A lot of those protests and stuff, and I was emotional when that stuff happened too. But I mean, time has passed. I've shed the tears. That's all done. So if this show came out 5 years ago, yeah, it would have been a little more impactful for me to move me to tears, but almost. Just 5 years too late.
It was crazy to see Cassian crying at the end.
Yeah, he shed a tear. You see that? Yeah.
Which is a big deal for him.
When he's flying away.
You don't see him have emotion all that much, other than anger.
Yeah, I mean, he was there. He saw everything.
Yeah.
He said that to Mon Mothma too. He's just like, I was there yesterday. This happened yesterday.
Yeah, so the K2SO situation.
So sick.
I guess we'll mention that here as well with the retcon consideration. Because this story of Cassian and K2SO meeting happened in a comic, which I've mentioned this before on the show, I think, but Star Wars has always had like a tier of like canon. So like there's the A canon, which is pretty much just live action stuff, but movies are like the top of that, and then TV shows.
For sure.
And then animated stuff is the B tier.
Yeah. B
so
minus.
like the Clone Wars and Rebels and all of those.
Because there's so much. Like you can't like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Dave Filoni and all those guys and what's his name, Sam Witwer. Yeah, all those guys could be like this, and this, and this, and this. This can't happen. This has to happen. This has to happen. And I'm sure they weren't super involved in that kind of thing. But
well, okay. So then there was the seed canon, which is like books, like all of the novels and stuff that have come out since Disney bought Star Wars, and then the D canon. There's like between C and D is like the comics. So like we are like so many levels removed.
Then F is Legends.
Yeah, basically.
Or F negative.
F negative. So the comics are like the lowest tier basically of like what is considered.
And Z tier is Lego.
Canon. Yeah, Lego. Pretty much. Which is still good.
Yeah, it's still great.
We made the list.
Yeah. I did buy the Star Wars Saga games, but I haven't played them yet.
They're so good. Well, there's just one, but yeah. So I wanted to bring up this comic just real quick because I did download it. It's honestly, if you were disappointed by what happened in the show and think it was like too quick, so is this comic. So
for sure, yeah. About like
it was.
I touched on, or I thought I read about that.
Yeah,
like the comic version of how K2SO came to being, and how the show just kind of, and how usually they don't do that of retconning things. Usually they don't do that, but they just completely obliterated this comic out of the water completely. To be like, nope, this didn't happen.
Yeah,
I mean they did that with the Ahsoka comics too. But
that was less like this didn't happen. It was more like this is kind of a quick summary of what may have happened. Yeah, like some of the broad strokes were still there. But yeah.
It's kind of like a third person's view of what may have happened, kind of thing, to be able to solidify maybe this is canon, something like that. And then the show is just like, nope, this is actually what happened. He got run over by a truck.
Yeah, a similar thing happened with Kanan Jarrus from Rebels, his origin in Bad Batch, showing how his master died and everything. That was pretty much completely retconned. Yeah. But this is probably the most extreme example of something getting retconned to the extreme, because like this entire story is like completely different. He's just with these twins that
and it's
he's trying to save
Cassian that reprograms him, right?
Yeah.
So obviously
just on the fly too, which I thought in the show they did way better. Like it's going to take some time to reprogram.
Yeah, and they were like explaining. They were like, we don't know if this is gonna work.
Yeah.
And Cassian was like, just turn it on.
Yeah, I love
Give
that.
me a gun.
And all the other guys, like, I liked how Cassian put up his gun, and then all the other guys pointed their guns at the droid too,
Yeah.
like not pointing it at Cassian. They're like, yeah, I don't trust this droid either.
Yeah. The comic was kind of cool with, like, he tries to wipe the memory once and then it doesn't work completely. And then, so he still tries to, like, detain him or whatever. And then he tries it again and it doesn't, like, completely wipe his memory. So he has to do it 3 times
Yeah.
by the time he's actually, like, able to, like, help him and stuff. But
Yeah. Help him be reborn.
yeah, so there were parts of the comic I like, but ultimately, like, it was kind of a comic that I didn't really care about that much in the first place. So I'm fine with this. It just did seem really quick. And, like, why did he take the droid in the first place?
I want to say just because the opportunity was there. Like, I wouldn't say...
I wish he just would have said, like, hey, this could be really useful. Instead, he's just like, hey, can you do me a favor?
I mean, he stood there for, like, 2 minutes.
I know. I wish he just... Like, if he just would have said, like, we could really use this droid. Instead of just, like, after all of that just happened, and he's trying to escape, like, he needs to get out of there right now.
Just like, hey, by the way, I just I ran over this thing. This could be cool, I guess.
Yeah, this could be cool.
Just use the spare parts for my ship, I guess. I don't know. But it was cool to see Alan Tudyk or Alan Tudyk or whatever voice
Tudyk.
Voice K2 again. Does an amazing job in Rogue One. So funny.
Yeah.
My favorite scene of all time in any Star Wars history is always when he's taking K2 is taking the Cassian and Jyn to, you know, wherever they're supposed to go, and the stormtroopers stop them, and they're like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, to jail. I'm taking them to jail." And Cassian pipes up and he's like, "Quiet you, and there's a fresh one if you pipe up again."
Just, like, slaps him.
And you can see in the movie still, he's just, like, covering his face. You can see him
probably not
laughing.
Probably trying not to laugh. Yeah.
That's my favorite scene in Star Wars history of all time.
So good. K2SO is one of the best characters, I think.
Bummer he died.
Yeah. But I'm glad they introduced him in these, so at least we'll get him in the last 3. I do wish we had gotten him earlier.
Yeah.
But 3 episodes with him will be pretty fun.
I mean, if it all played out the way it was supposed to, we would have got him, 5 years from now? Or 3 years from now, or whatever.
Yeah.
If it was supposed to be all fleshed out full seasons.
Yeah, if this was going to be season 4.
Yeah, it would have been 4 years from now, 4 or 5 years from now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But the end times are coming, so we got to speed everything up.
Yeah, get it all out.
Yeah.
So episode 9, Mon Mothma is trying to prepare her speech in her office, and then she finds that bug.
And just immediately.
Yeah, I love that.
Just without thinking, just kabam. And they both looked at each other like, this happened.
I thought that was really cool. And then she goes out, and then Luthen comes up. And is like,
without his wig.
Yeah.
Which was nuts.
Very bold of him to do that. At the Senate Tower.
Yeah.
He just knows it's time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He knows that he's like, my time is up. Like, I gave everything. I'm about to die. I know. I'm going to hang for this.
Yeah.
This is nuts.
It was interesting, though. He basically told her, like, trust no one because everyone around you is not trustworthy. Even though, like, he's like, by the way, Bale has this exit plan for you, but one of his guys is corrupt or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay, so
your exit strategy's already failed, so you got to trust me. And she's like, oh, so I can only trust in you. And he's just like,
yes, duh.
Yeah, dude.
Well,
like, we've been in this since the beginning. I understand. I made you do some crappy things, but come on.
Like, no, you can't even trust me. Like, that's the point. Like,
But you can't trust anybody. Said that, but not. He didn't want to be a jerk.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He couldn't say that because he just told her that her assistant was working for him the whole time secretly.
And then
Like-
he goes back and says, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. To Clea. And
Yeah.
she's just like, well, you're a man. You're a grown-ass man. Just,
Yeah, I love their relationship.
Yeah.
Clea and Luthen.
Yeah. And, like when in the last three where they were leaving the thing and
They made a joke.
He was just like, oh, I should have killed Krennic. And she was just like, that's my boy.
Yeah, should have killed him right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. But yeah, that was interesting that he just like, hey, you can't trust Bale's people, but also you can't trust your own people because they also work for me. But
Yeah. And don't trust me.
But
And don't trust yourself.
You
And
can't
don't trust
me.
anything.
Yeah.
But you can if you want to.
Yeah, but you probably should.
And it was cool. It was cool. That moment, and then her going to Bale and being like, so you got people coming to help me, right? He's like, yeah. And she's like, do you know them? He was like, no, it wouldn't be safe. Like,
Yeah.
No, that you can't do that. And then she's just like, oh,
Yeah.
No.
oh, yes.
He was right. Yeah.
Just like in the moment where Luthien talks to Mon Mothma's assistant. He's like, I'm from Gorman. And he's like, oh.
They have that in the recap for these episodes. I was like, I didn't realize how animated he says that.
Oh. You're a Gorman.
He's so funny.
He's such a good actor.
Yeah, he's so good.
By the way,
He does so little, but every intricate little thing that he
Yes.
does is just so accurate,
Yes.
like to what a person would do and how they would react.
Yeah.
Like going back to his speech talking to Yoon or Yang or whatever his name is.
yeah, you
Just talking to him on
The
that
Imperial
platform,
guy.
him being like, I gave up everything. I love no one. Everybody I love is dead.
yeah,
Like, I'm friends with ghosts. And I was like, whoa. Whoa.
yeah.
That speech was honestly
So good.
better than Mothma's speech in this show.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
So good.
I mean,
Just
Mon
like,
Mothma was really good though.
when he
Yeah.
said I was friends with ghosts, I was like,
yeah, yeah, he deserved.
that's rebellion, baby.
He deserved an award for that speech.
yeah. He needs an Emmy for that for sure.
But yeah, Luthen sends Cassian, and he's still undercover as a journalist, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and him going back to the same front desk guy and him being like, what's your name today?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
that was
he's-
last episode. Yeah, yeah.
And he was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, that's your name. All
Yeah.
right. I didn't check you in, but she's going to definitely turn you in for what you just said, dumbass.
But then you find out that he didn't actually even log his name at all. So then,
Yeah,
like,
he
it
was just
doesn't
like,
even
yeah,
matter.
I'm checking out.
You were
He was just
never
like,
here.
didn't log you in. Go away.
Yeah, you were never here.
Yeah.
That was really good. And then that.
And then
kid
he said,
died.
hope is built on rebellion, which
Yeah.
gets passed to him and then gets passed to Jin. And then,
So cool.
Yeah.
becomes like the motto of the rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that in episode 8.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, basically this was like a heist, getting
Yeah.
Mothma out of
It was
there.
cool.
Yeah.
And that was just so well done.
Yeah.
Because you get the Bale's people who you find out who the traitor was, and it was the woman, and she was like trying to hide it from the other guy, and
And she kills him.
then she kills him.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting.
It's like, who are you talking to?
My favorite thing about like this whole scene is the fact that Cassian and Mothma's assistant like work together
Yeah.
the entire time, and it's just
I
really cool
thought
to see them.
I thought they were going to screw it up, and
Oh,
he was just
yeah.
going to run away crying and be like, just not in her life anymore, and not in the show anymore. And then
Yeah.
he turns around and he's like, I have friends everywhere, and they were both like,
Yeah, I just thought
Cassian's
their
like, what did you just say?
their dynamic was really cool.
yeah,
Really good.
That was really good, really cool. And he was about to sacrifice himself, being like, just go, I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just hanging in there.
I thought for a split second at the beginning that he was going to be like another double agent, the assistant guy, because we had predicted that in the first episodes
that he was going to be
like
a
maybe he was
agent,
a double agent or something. But I was glad he wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, we kind of know he can't be because he shows up in Rebels later.
Yeah,
yes,
he shows up in Rebels for that very last scene before the speech.
Maybe he wasn't caught, and so then he was still with her.
Still bad.
Yeah, he's still bad in Rebels. We only see him in that one episode, but
yeah, for that very brief, like three-word sentence, and he's like, "Yeah, I got you, dude," and then go do your speech.
Yeah. Yeah, I was glad that he was still on her side, even after she like told him off.
Yeah.
Like, what did she say? Like, you're done.
Yeah, you're dismissed.
Dismissed
immediately.
Yeah. Immediately.
Immediately. And he was like, "It's been an honor."
Trying not to cry.
Yeah. And you would think, but what solidified it was that he was from Gorman, and Gorman just got
his
annihilated.
Mother was Gorman or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm sure that he was just like, all right, like there's no doubt that he's got to be a part of the rebellion.
Yeah.
So, and it also played into the fact that I don't know if she said it in this show or Rebels or something like that, that she said that, I grew up in the Senate. I walked these halls as a child, and how Cassian was like, we got to go to the loading dock or whatever, or the loading bay or something like that. And she was like, forget the loading bay. I know another way. And they just go out the back, essentially, to be like her knowledge of, I think, the Force just kind of intervening, choosing her to be like, okay, this is the person, like the Force saying this is the person that we're going to choose to be able to do this, so that she can get out, get away, and create a balance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was that spiritual, but because she just goes to her driver.
Well, I should say
she just went to her driver.
The writer.
No, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, the reason she knew where to go next was she just went to her driver, because then they like kill him.
Yeah,
like he's an ISB plant,
which was crazy.
Blast him.
Which was crazy, because I thought for half a second that he was going to turn and be like, "This is crazy. I'm going to go on your side. I heard your speech. Let's go."
Yeah,
and then Cassian was he was like, Krillo or whatever the fuck his name is.
Jimmy.
He's like, hey, yeah, Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy, are you Jimmy? Yeah. Who are you? Bam.
Who are you?
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, because it made him look like he was like listening to the speech, and he was like
this way, let's go.
Well, he was like maybe like considering like, oh, she's right, and why am I like going against her?
Because it was like a dilemma when he heard the speech and he looked over at his gun.
Yeah.
And you kind of didn't see what was going to happen next. So you assume that he just but you assume that he picked up the gun and just like put it in his back pocket, because it was Schrodinger's gun or whatever it's called. When you see a gun, it's going to go off.
Yeah.
And you see the gun, you assume he put it in his back pocket, and Cassian was the one that ultimately shot the gun. So,
yeah. So that would have been interesting if they had time to sit there and talk to him, but Cassian didn't want to take any chance.
Yeah, and that's just the coldness of Cassian that you see throughout the show. Like, going back a few episodes when he shot that AT-AT pilot, or ATST pilot, and Bix having a huge problem with it or whatever, and she's just like, you didn't even know who he was or whatever, you just shot him in cold blood. And he was like, why did you shoot him? Did you shoot him just because he saw my face or whatever? And like that also plays, in fact, later into the 9th episode of her, Bix, realizing that she's a burden essentially to Cassian, and that's why she ultimately leaves.
Yeah.
And is like, I'll see you after we win. And everybody's like, about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
You ain't gonna make it, baby.
So hard.
Yeah, I actually cried at this part.
Yeah.
I was like... Because she's like one of the best characters in the show.
She's really
just,
good.
They just write her off like, see you later.
Yeah, which... And I mean, it's either that or she dies, because she's not in Rogue One. So.
Ultimately, I think it's a good happy ending to her, being like awakened, not necessarily a Force user, but awakened to the Force and seeing how the Force can be healing rather than such a burden from Palpatine's end, and actually it being used for healing, which hasn't been used a lot in canon of shows or movies or anything. It only happened with Kylo and a few others,
Grogu.
and Grogu. Yeah. I mean, it happens all the time in the games, but nobody talks about the games.
I know, right? When people are mad about that, like, have you ever played a video game? Because that's like,
everybody's like, the new Force healing, and it's like, that was like way back in the 90s during the games, dude.
Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, even a lot of, weebs that were super obsessed with Star Wars were like, Force healing isn't a thing. And it's like, actually, it's been there for a while.
Yeah.
Do you know who Kyle is? But anyway.
Yeah, so Bix, it was sad to see her go, and like, it triggered a little bit in me of like her reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I completely understand why. Like, she didn't want to like hinder Cassian, and like, then she'd ultimately be like the reason maybe why the rebellion didn't succeed, and they lost the war and everything, which is accurate. And that she didn't know that at the time, but she definitely had the foresight of being like, he's important to this cause.
Yeah.
And he's wanting to leave with her. So she's just removing herself from that.
Yeah.
But it definitely triggered something in me, because I have experienced people doing that in my life. Like,
leaving because they think you have an important role to play down the road in, God's plan or your life or somebody else's life, something like that.
Like, you don't have the authority of that.
I don't deserve you. And it's like, well, shut up.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to that as well. Me being somebody who was a former person who dated a lot. I'll put it gently. But
we're gonna mention flesh again in this.
All right, shut up. Me and Brad had a discussion on Call of Duty last night about
We had a pretty deep
some
conversation
things.
last night.
And I said I would not partake of the flesh anymore until I'm married, which is why he's making fun of me. But I just been reading too much. But yeah, it was really sad to see. But ultimately, good.
Yeah,
it was a happier ending than what most people would expect.
Yeah.
Because we all expected everyone was going to die in the Gorman Rebellion, which is what I kind of predicted. Like, everybody would have showed up there. Luthien, Clea, everybody for some particular reason or whatever, them knowing that Gorman was important. And all of them dying, which honestly, good for that. Good for the writers. Good for the directors to just kind of keep death out of her story, and just make it more just because she suffered so much, and like her coming in like the previous 6 episodes after her like being like essentially a drug user or whatever that was, that little blue vial or whatever it was, just trying to go to sleep, and Luthien being like, if you get off that stuff, the dreams are just going to get worse, which can be said about modern day drugs, about weed, CBD, all that kind of stuff. If you use it to sleep, you're typically, me being a former user of all those things, usually you don't dream, you just kind of daydream during the day, just kind of hallucinates here and there, or just like in your thoughts or whatever, and you typically don't dream. But when you get off that stuff, it all comes like your brain just goes whoosh, like a waterfall. Everything comes flooding back. So I'm thankful to God that I don't do that anymore. But
Luthien does say that as well. It's like, once you get off them, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And I liked how they kind of tidbitted those little things of like, hey, drug use is not the way to be able to get over this stuff. You got to get over it like through the hardship and through the trials of your mind to be able to get through it. It's going to suck for a while, but you'll get through it.
Yeah.
But using those drugs is just going to make it fine for now. Later, it's going to suck real bad when you're coming off of it.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that from their secular standpoint of being like, don't go that route. Just give her the happy route of just going away. And unfortunately, her feeling like he's going to make out of it. And we all know he doesn't.
Yeah, we know that he doesn't. But I think it was good also for Cassian to have that hope of like, let's get this done so I can go live with her and like have a happy life with her.
Which is ultimately what he's wanted from the beginning, is being like him dodging one problem after the other and just getting through things so that he can be done, essentially, and just be off and, go find his sister or just go live a happy life with Bix and Willman
the boy, as Saul would say.
Dude, I love Willman so much. Mm-hmm. I was gonna ask who you guys relate to the most in these, like what we've seen so far. Who do you guys relate to the most? I relate to Willman because I used to be that guy that would be like
huff gas.
No. I've never huffed gas, but I've huffed other things. No, I relate to him the most because when I would be doing important work in something, I would get distracted by women the whole time, and that's that dude's status quo. Every single time we see him, he's like, all right, find a local girl, get her in bed, or get her.
I didn't even think about that, but like, he did that on that other planet.
He did it on the farming planet. He did it on, Gorman.
Yeah.
And luckily he made it out with the girl too, that she saved him, and like he's just laying in bed like, what's up? Let's go do this next thing. And Cassian's like, put him in med bay or whatever. But I relate to him the most.
I made it out.
Exactly. I relate to him the most just because I feel like he experienced a lot of loss just being in the back end, not doing a whole lot, but
from
trying.
Ferrex too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. From Ferrex, his dad being completely eviscerated mentally. Yeah. And he died, right?
I think so.
I think he died, yeah. He died ultimately. And just having that loss and making that your driving point, and him just being the spark that lit that revolt on Ferrex of throwing that bomb and setting it off, and ultimately not screwing everything up, but like making everything a lot worse because you have these feelings of like, I need to get revenge on that blonde-haired woman that destroyed my life. Not that I have a blonde-haired woman that destroyed my life or anything. But yeah, though I relate to those feelings so hard that you just want to get back at something that wronged you so hard. I have a problem with revenge. That you just want to get back so hard at that person. He did that every step of the way. And he also let his own desires get in the way of some things. That's ultimately why Bravos, I think it's his name, Bravos or something like that.
Brasso.
That's ultimately why Brasso died, just screwing everything up, trying to settle in a place that you are not supposed to settle in. This spot is temporary, and you settle there and you screw up, and you're like, I screwed everything up. Somebody died, and then he does the next thing and sees Saw and is like ultimately baptized in this like radiation poisoning, which was so weird and so unnecessary, that whole entire scene.
Well, it's probably going to come back.
It's probably going to come back, that like radiation, their version of radiation bomb or whatever. And so I was like, I'm crazy, right? Yeah, this is why I'm crazy, because my sister is radiation. And we were like, whoa. And then ultimately he was like, yeah, I'm going to do this too. I'm going to be like Saw Gerrera. And you're like, okay. Which ultimately, I mean, kind of saved him in a certain way to flip the script of being like, the rebellion is the important thing. I can do these other things. I mean, we shouldn't do that in daily life, but I can still keep doing what I'm doing, but the rebellion is the important thing.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if he even had
in the
a
show
choice
that's important.
in that with Saw.
Huh?
I wonder if he even had a choice though. Like,
No way.
Of taking the mask off?
if he didn't do that stuff, I feel like Saw probably would have just killed
Saw
him.
probably would have just ripped the mask off or just been like choked him and killed him or something, like done some Saw Gerrera shit.
Yeah, something so stupid. Yeah.
He'd be like, I'm gonna kill you because my sister told me to, and it's like, all right. That's Saw Gerrera. I mean, if that happened, I would have got it. Like, I would have been like, okay, that's
and
definitely.
I think something very, very bad is going to happen with Saw.
Yeah.
In these next three.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because No. I was gonna say he dies before Rogue One, but no, he's in Rogue One.
Yeah, he's in Rogue One. He dies in Rogue One, but he does lose his legs before Rogue One.
Somebody's gonna have him. He might blow his legs off in whatever that bomb is or something.
Yeah, it's got to be some kind of bomb that something goes wrong. He makes it too volatile or something, and
And I wonder if Jin will kind of be mentioned in the next three.
I could see her be mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see her be mentioned, or them being like, "We have another card to play," or something like that, and that being Jin and something along like that, or her father, something along those lines. Just because if he raised her, he knows who she is already, So you would think something along those lines would happen in the next 3 episodes. I'm going to make another prediction, and it's probably going to be right because I've been right about the last 6 episodes. I think that she will be mentioned in some sort of backdoor, quasi, mentioning of her by either Saw or Luthien. And I think that might be the reason why Luthien dies, is because he knows about Jin and Saw nixes Luthien.
You think Luthien's gonna die by Saw?
Okay, first of all, it's Luthen.
Luthen, whatever.
Now you got him saying it wrong.
Sorry.
Luthen.
I think Luthen's gonna die by Saw because they're such at odds, and they're two sides of the same coin, but both sides are so completely different. They're fighting for the same cause, but it's like guerrilla warfare and spycraft.
Yeah.
Just two different dudes. Just Saw Gerrera completely being like, I'm for the rebellion, and if you're not, I'm going to kill you. And if you don't do what I say, you're going to die. Which, he's, essentially the contrast of, he's the mirror of Palpatine being like, if you're not for the rebellion, I'm going to kill you. Mm-hmm. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. He just makes it all worse.
Yes. And Luthien's like, I'm in it to win it, and I might die, but this is, I'm trying to do good.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I think Luthen is gonna die by Saw in some way, either by an assassin.
I could see that.
Or Saw might get to Clea because Luthien might lose it, or say something to the contrary that just completely rubs Clea the wrong way, and Saw gets to her and mixes him because he's not mentioned anywhere else.
Yeah, what if Saw, or what if Luthen finds out about Jin and uses it against Saw? Like, you have this liability.
Yeah.
And then Saw is like, well, you have this other liability, this is Clea.
True.
And then they're like,
At odds
no,
with
you,
each other.
but you.
Yeah.
No,
and they
you.
just point. And then one of Saw's dudes just blasts him.
Or like Luthen might die in the explosion that, whatever. Like maybe they
Could
get
be.
involved in the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
But we predicted
Saw's
that
like-
last time that they would conglomerate and something would happen. I don't think Luthen's that stupid that he would get super involved with that. I think part of him is going to...
unless he doesn't know.
True. I think what could happen, like what you said, is that he would mention Jin and then Saw would just end him. Just right there. It's like, that's my friend's daughter. I raised her since she was a child. Don't talk about her. That's my last card to play.
Get her name out of your mouth.
Exactly. And then just blast him. And then Clea
Maybe.
just gets blasted too, or converts to Saw's programming, essentially.
I kind of...
Or she just like completely abandons the rebellion and just shuts down shop and just goes into the void. What Clea would do.
The more I think about it, I think that might be what happened is there's some operation that they're going to do, and Luthen is trying to do it like in the spy way, like trying to infiltrate and like find
Be a
information.
scalpel, and Saw is just the
And Saul
fist.
is just happens to catch on to what they're doing and like does things his way, and they don't even know that they're there until the last second, and then
Or they could
Saul
act
just
like
explodes it.
they
or
could
something.
act like they're working together and try to be the scalpel, and Saw's just like, I'm gonna let my sister loose and just explode everything, and like
Yeah.
Luthen's like and just dies.
It could be that, or like what you said before, is like they
Or
wouldn't.
Clea
they
dies
wouldn't
in
even
that
bother.
incident, and then Luthen goes insane and tries to kill Saw. Saw kills him.
Maybe. But yeah, I think that's a pretty solid something related to those two getting involved in a bad way.
Just
is
because
a good prediction.
That's, I feel like, is a theme of the show, especially since season 1 when they did the heist. Is like, yeah, you're all fighting for the same cause, but you know
can't
you
work
have
together.
Yeah, you can't work together. You have different ideologies of what the rebellion means.
Yeah.
Like that one dude who got killed by Cassian. He just like, just take the money and go. I don't have a brother. Blah blah blah. Cassian just blasts him, but he still was involved in the
From
heist.
the heist, yeah.
He still was involved in the heist. And there was that dude who wrote the manifesto. Like he was purely in it for the rebellion and trying to write a manifesto, which is ultimately why Cassian is able to stay in it, because he read the whole thing, obviously, because he
still
spouts it
has
out
it.
in season 2.
Yeah.
So I mean that goes for any rebellion, you know, like when I was involved in some of the riots that happened 5 years ago or whatever. Well, not involved in the riots, sorry, involved in the protests. I didn't do any riots or anything like that. I was purely there. I brought a duffel bag full of water and like, you know, energy bars or whatever for like if there was kids in there, if there was women in there, if there was like, you know, young guys in there that couldn't hack it, you know, running around all of downtown Indianapolis in a hot summer day or whatever. And there was dudes and women that would just run in completely blacked out drunk and just run up to cops and yell in their face, and I would have to grab them by the back of the shirt and just like pull them away and be like, that's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's not what we're here for. We're here to make a statement. We're not here to revolt.
Yeah.
You know,
And provoke.
we're not here to provoke. We're just here to make a statement that this is not okay.
Yeah.
After walking past smoking buildings that were on fire from the riot that happened the week beforehand that I accidentally walked into, but I won't get into that. I was walking to a friend's house and didn't know what was going on. I was like,
So you are
oh,
getting
okay,
into
just another. Yeah, I'm gonna get into it. Sorry. But I was walking to a friend's house. We were planning on playing video games or whatever. He happened to live at the center of downtown and saw people with signs walking away or whatever, some people running. And I was just like, oh, you know, the protest is done, whatever. And I was just parked at a parking lot, just walked down the street. and I saw down one of the main streets of Indianapolis that a cop car was on fire, and I was like, oh, I'm in danger. And I was like, oh, well, I've been around danger, whatever. I just kept walking. And then I smelled the familiar smell, and it was CS gas, which is essentially just pepper spray for police. They just throw it out or whatever. And I was like, uh-oh, that's bad. And I just saw like the fog of like the circle. We have a circle in downtown Indianapolis that just encompasses the center of Indiana. And just this fog of CS gas was everywhere. And that was a neat night. Anyway, I'll move on. But
so yeah, the fact of like rebellions are really hard to make everyone
on the same page,
come together on the same page.
Yeah.
And that's why Mon Mothma is such a big deal in this show, because that is her job.
She tries to get everybody on the same page, being like,
what she does.
This is what we're doing. Palpatine bad, rebellion good.
Yeah. And like
Republic good.
And we have lines that we don't cross. And that's why in Rogue One you see like she disowns Saw. Like he's not part of our rebellion. He's not part of our alliance. He's his own thing.
Yeah.
We don't agree with his methods because he's a terrorist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
when you resort to terrorism, usually it ends in death.
Yeah.
But when you come to a solid rebellion and everybody's on the same page, chaos usually falls. But order usually prevails when it comes to the goodness of things.
Right.
Which is ultimately what the show's about, and what I think Cassian needed to learn throughout the show through trials and hardship.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't want to be in it at all at the beginning.
Yeah. He ultimately
neither did Jin.
True.
Everyone's just wanting to live their life until they become affected by the Empire's ways, and then they're like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Until they come to that fork in the road and they're like, is this bad or is this bad? Okay, this isn't bad. Let's go this way.
Yeah.
And then they all seem, usually the people that prevail usually spout out, hope is built on rebellion kind of thing.
Rebellion is built on hope.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't think the reverse is true.
Yeah. Hope is built on rebellion. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I really, really liked these last 3 episodes. Yes. I really liked them.
Best of the series, in my opinion.
It was, I think, the pinnacle of what us 3 and Ben talked about, and what we were hoping for would happen. That would, create the ultimate pen stroke of this story. Yeah. To just kind of finalize it, and I'm excited to see what happens in the next 3. Do you guys have any major or minor predictions of what's going to happen aside from what we talked about with Saw and Luthen?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one for me, is what we talked about with them.
I think we're going to see an update on the mining operations on Gorman.
Yeah.
Maybe,
because that's where we could find Dedra, where she's just probably just hanging her head, eyes wide open, my whole life's over, I'm just dedicated to this job now, which is ultimately what she wanted, which is her job, and doing everything that she wanted. And I think got everything she wanted.
I think she's
but everything else fell to the wayside and became cannon fodder.
I think she's just going to get a promotion and leave Gorman completely and just do whatever. I wonder if we'll even see much of her on these next 3.
I think we might get some kind of conclusion. Either she'll die by Cassian, or Bix, or Willman.
But the Gorman story is over for the most part.
For sure, but she still played a major part in Bix's life and Cassian's life.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyone who was involved with Ferrix.
But I'm just these are the last 3 of the series. And I think they're going to focus more on connecting to Rogue One rather than connecting behind.
That's true.
So Maybe we'll see a mention of her in the first episode or something, but I don't know.
like that. I would like to see that.
Yeah,
I would like to see Dedra's ending to the story.
Yeah.
If they don't touch on it, I'll be very disappointed.
Like maybe
because her and Cyril was such a major part in this entire thing.
Maybe she gets promoted and either she stays on Gorman and oversees the mining stuff, or she just gets promoted in the ISB and like goes back to Coruscant or something.
Mm-hmm. Or goes back to Cyril's mother and explains why, and she just slaps her in the face.
Seeing her like cry at the news of it all, even though I can't stand the character. It was sad. She did such a great job.
Yeah, being the visceral, acidic mother character of being like, you're such a disappointment, I do so much for you, blah blah blah, and then seeing her son die is just her essentially just breaking down and being like, everything I've ever worked for is gone.
Yeah. That's probably what the only thought she had was.
Yeah, just all the effort and thought that I put into you is all a waste. Yeah, you're ultimately a waste is what she kept ultimately meditating on and essentially just putting out into the world like, you're a waste, blah blah blah, nothing you do matters. Yeah, such a disappointment. And ultimately she got her wish, was like her son being gone out of her hair, essentially. Yeah. Which is, I wonder what she thought or felt, which I think is what would be the ending to Deirdre's story. Is Deirdre maybe Dedra? Well, it's spelled Dee, whatever. It's just Dedra. It's called Dedra. But anyway, I think that would be the ultimate climax, because she essentially told her what the business was. Mm-hmm. And the last time that I was here, being like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to stop shit talking your son. Yeah. Because he's with me now. Yeah. This is not a choice. Yeah. Which is ultimately what I think is going to happen is she's going to be rewarded by the Empire. They're going to have like some kind of weird quasi celebration or whatever. And, the confetti will fall and she'll be like deadpanning to the camera, like, I'm empty, and then going to
like The Office.
Essentially,
I am empty inside.
Yeah, I am dead inside. Yeah. And then going to Cyril's mom and just showing up at the door, and like them either just staring at each other or having a short conversation, or her just slapping her in the face, and then.
Or do you think they'll have a funeral?
I don't think they will.
And then that's when they see each other.
That could be.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I don't really see
having
her
a big magnificent funeral, but he was undercover, so I don't think that the Empire would acknowledge that. So it might be a small funeral between her and Cyril's mom.
No, he wasn't undercover like being there. He was undercover with the Gorman Front, but his official position was like in charge of
data and analytics or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. That was his official role.
Something purity. Yeah.
So it could still happen.
I think they'll have like maybe just like a big like shrine to him or something, and they'll both be standing there, and then like maybe Cyril's mom will still be standing there and Deirdre will walk away, or vice versa, or something like that, and then it'll just be that. They'll probably just give it that kind of ending, probably. Yeah. But what do you think is going to happen to Woman? I'll ask both of you. I think he's going to stay on Yavin. He's not going to have anything to do with the rest of the story.
I think he's going to get involved with Saw. I think that scene had a reason.
That's
for
a good point.
Being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think
him going a little nuts, and then his girlfriend is worried or something.
Yeah, like because when he showed up in episode 7 and like talking to Cassie and like, hey, Luthen needs you for a mission, but they kept asking him, where have you been? I thought they were referring to him being with Saw.
But there was a whole year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't know how long he was with Saw. Like maybe he was with him for a long time.
Yeah. Maybe he like showed him the ways of what Saul's rebellion looks like, or
yeah,
something like
maybe
that.
Because, I mean, he
became a badass in the end.
He kind of used Saw's methods at Gorman.
Yeah.
So
Killing.
maybe he like learned from him and agrees with his methods, and like then he goes back. Like maybe there'll be a scene of like them at Yavin, like trying to decide of like what's going on with their next steps, and like what are we doing? We're supposed to be like, we need to go do something. We're not going to be like standing here talking about it. We need to go do something. And
his revenge being the
Saul.
cornerstone. Yeah.
Maybe Saul gives him an offer and like, hey, we'll do something.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what's going to happen.
And then that sequence or whatever that he does for the bomb or something goes wrong, and then he dies, and then that's how Saul loses.
Yeah, because we never saw that. Like,
loses all his limbs or whatever.
Come to fruition with that whole thing that he was teaching that guy to do, and like, obviously we saw him like huff the gas or whatever, but there's got to be a reason for that.
I would hope so, because I feel like they've, dropped a lot of things that should have been in the longer seasons, and just like briefly, pen noted, like, here's this, here's that, here's this.
I think overall they've been pretty good at addressing everything. Maybe not for as long as I would like, but but that's just kind of the nature of it being one season. Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing about this show. It's like one of the most well-received shows by fans, and they just cutting it completely short, which is status quo for most streaming services nowadays, unfortunately.
Well, no, they wanted it 5 seasons, but the writer and the guy that plays Cassian, Diego, didn't want to.
Dumb.
But I mean, that is a long time to make something, and I don't think they wanted to tie themselves down for that long.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have done other stuff too.
Years.
I mean, like Pedro Pascal, he's in The Last of Us. Dude's still doing other things. He's not just doing The Last of Us. And I mean, I guess he was only in 1.5 seasons, but I'm sure he'll hopefully, like we discussed last night, hopefully he'll be in more flashbacks like the game.
Yeah, if they make it accurate to the game, he'll be in flashbacks.
Which I'm not holding out much hope. But yeah, I mean, ultimately I think we can all agree it's very disappointing that they're not holding out to that. For sure,
but I'm glad they're not just making a season 2 where it was going to be the first arc of season 2 so far. Like,
I would have hated that.
I'm glad they're
making
finishing
it short.
The story.
Yeah, and just finishing
just making
all the important arcs.
Exactly, yeah.
So hopefully that's not the last that we see of Dedra. Because they played a huge role in season 1. Huge role thus far in season 2. And if they end Dedra's thing off in just like a footnote, I'm gonna lose it.
So do you think Cyril's death was satisfying?
Yes.
I think it was.
It was because of what Cassian said, being like, "Who are you?"
Yeah,
and
that was so perfect.
Cyril just like being like, "You've been my whole life for the past 5 years or something like that. And you don't even know who I am."
Yeah,
because Cassian never saw his face.
He did, I think, once.
Maybe, but for 5 seconds.
Very passing thing.
Who can remember somebody you see for 5 seconds? I mean, if you're pointing a gun at somebody, I'm sure you would see their face.
But there was so much chaos going on
times.
in that. In season 1, that there's no way he would have remembered that.
Yeah.
He was just a trooper guy.
I wish they would have expounded upon Cyril's role in the rebellion, because it seemed like when he came up on the Gorman's leader's daughter, coming up to her being like,
she slapped him.
Yeah. He was like, "This is what's happening. This is what's coming up from my front," and she slapped him. So it seemed like they had a fake, spy relationship or whatever.
Either or he did something that they didn't agree with, or something like that.
Or that they found out. because the dad found out. But because I think that why that was important was because I think that Cyril and the I'll call him the president's daughter. The president's daughter's relationship mattered was because they probably got involved with each other, and Cyril did it for the sake of essentially being a spy to try to earn trust. And they probably slept together, or they were probably together in some kind of way. And I think that's why Cyril ultimately died by the president guy from Gorman, was because he was so impassioned, because he was like, you know, I gave you my daughter essentially. And you've been an Imperial spy this whole time, and is why he killed him, why he was so impassioned the whole time.
I could see that.
And I think I would have loved to see Cyril's involvement in more being an Imperial spy.
Yeah.
But it was just so cut short with just the heist and this and that, him meeting with Dedra and him doing this and him saying that, and him being in the office being like, this is bullshit. Why are you searching my office? I'm part of the Empire. Blah, blah, blah. And like...
Then you find out that was all an act, too.
Yeah, it was all an act.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I mean,
I love that.
I think...
Like kick a trash can.
Yes.
I love that.
I think that whole... It's
just very Michael Scott.
Those whole 3 episodes should have been a whole season, because it would have been more. The Gorman massacre would have been more impactful,
for sure,
and Cyril's death would have been more meaningful.
Yeah.
But you know, we're getting these week by week, and they're a year apart, and not fair.
Yeah. I think so many things would have been more impactful. The whole massacre would have been more impactful.
If they would have made these episodes month by month, I think it would have been more impactful. But they're not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's definitely implied things that happened a lot.
And I think it just goes to show, like, people who are assigned to these kind of things, like Andor, the writer, did a great job, but his heart wasn't in it for some reason. Great show.
What do you mean?
He wanted to skip along and be like, okay, let's just make 5 seasons, just 1 season, but everything is all...
I would say that's not because his heart wasn't in it. It's just...
He didn't want to dedicate 10 years to it, or 5 years to it, or whatever. It would have been
10 years, considering how long it's taken to make this.
For sure, but at the same time, like, dude dedicated, 15, 20 years to Bourne Identity, and he doesn't want to do this one thing. Like, the things that you do in this life mean something, and if you want to take it as this, being like, oh, this is just a turnstile to be able to go into this thing for Disney or Netflix or Hulu or whatever, so I can write the next thing, the next James Cameron movie or whatever.
I mean, he's also
take what
pretty old.
Take what you have, do your best with it.
Yeah.
And take your time. Take your time doing it. That's ultimately my thing. Take initiative and ambition and the things that you've been given. Otherwise, people are gonna hate you for it, for not taking it seriously.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen with this show. Even with the shorter span, I think it's still gonna end up being the best, some of the best Star Wars we've got.
The most well received, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, but yes, this is because I'm so impassioned about this show, based on what Spencer said about it being so relatable, because we're not Force users. Like, this is what would happen in a rebellion if we were to join the rebellion. I mean, none of us would be a Cassian, or whatever, but I don't know. It's just it would have been such a better show. Also, going back on the other shows, Mandalorian and Boba Fett. Boba Fett was such a fart in the wind.
Yeah.
Did so dirty to the actor that did Boba Fett and everybody in it. Like, everything in that show was such a letdown. And I mean, there were some nice things, like he became the crime lord or whatever for the whole planet, but
That wasn't even for the whole planet, I don't think.
yeah, or maybe just I think it was
just Mos Espa, wasn't it?
I mean,
even
isn't
so.
that the whole planet?
No,
Even so,
it's not even the capital.
Like he replaced, the huts in that area, and But anyway, just based around I would say most of the Star Wars shows, Star Wars movies that have come out, Andor has been, for me, the best because it's so relatable. It meant more to me, I guess, just because I could see things in it. It was very contrastable. It felt like a painting, the whole show. And he just, farted out all these episodes, which were...
You're contradicting yourself.
Which were great, but so sped up.
Okay, so if I had never told you that it was originally supposed to be 5 seasons...
No, I would have known.
If you didn't know that.
If I didn't know it was originally supposed to be that, I still would have been upset. No. I still would have been like, well, what happened with this? What happened with the daughter? What happened with, why is this, all sped up?
Like it still feels rushed.
Yeah, it all still, I wouldn't say, yeah. It feels rushed. It makes me upset because I feel like Andor could have been the next Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. Honestly, because people would have tuned in,
or Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have been, so rushed. People who didn't like Star Wars would have gotten into it, been like, okay, there's no laser swords, there's no Force talk, there's no this, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. That's just people trying to survive in the Star Wars universe. Mm-hmm. I think it would have brought more Star Wars fans in, which I don't care about, but I think Disney would have cared about, for them to be like, okay, there's more Star Wars fans. We can do more on top of this.
I think a lot of it has to do with the first season not doing very well at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of, people were starting to catch up on it and like, oh, this is actually really good. And like even non-Star Wars fans were starting to get in on it. And it was a very slow thing. So by the time this season was starting to like have like marketing for it, people were like, oh yeah, like we really want this.
Yeah, we want more of this. And then it's over.
I get the vibe from Tony Gilroy, who's the writer, that he really enjoys it now. And is like, maybe he might regret doing it this way.
Honestly,
because I think he made this decision when season 1 was going on.
Yeah, he was probably like, I don't want to do the rest of this.
Like, no one cares about this, so why am I doing this?
Yes, exactly.
And now people really
Love
care about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like he might regret that decision.
I would.
Yeah.
If I was a real
even like
being.
Because he's never been a Star Wars fan, really, but he's just a really good writer.
Yeah, he's an incredible writer.
And whenever people would ask him, like, are you gonna like have Easter eggs and blah blah blah? Like, no, I don't care about that.
Yeah, he doesn't care about
a good story.
He still says that to this day. He's like, do I really got to do this thing? And everybody's like, yes. And he's like, ugh.
But I think he said multiple times recently, he's like, I have a way more of appreciation for the lore and the whole universe as a whole, and like connecting things, and like he enjoys it way more than when he first started, and even in Rogue One.
Yeah. Like at the end of season 1, you could tell it was a gold mine of not only just for the money of making it a long form series, but also just being a good show that Disney actually churned out rather than.
And different.
Yeah, a lot different than all the other stuff. Because Mandalorian was good. Mandalorian. Mandalorian was so good, and then they just kind of, I don't know, they Disneyified it, I guess.
They kind of fumbled season 3.
Yeah. They fumbled season 3. Like, I understand that it was probably, they filmed during COVID and used a lot of different technology for a lot of the different things that they were using. But yeah, they just really, they fumbled through it. They were just trying to get it all done and being like, all right, let's wrap this up. Nobody cares about it anymore.
I don't think that's true. There's going to be a movie coming out for it, but
well,
yeah.
Well,
I think they just, with season 3,
yeah,
I think they were planning this story, and then Disney was like, okay, your season 4 is going to be a movie. They're like, oh, well, we set some stuff up that we kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
From what people are saying about the trailers that they saw at Celebration, the movie looks really good. So I'm still excited for that. But
yeah, we'll see. And I mean, I think another one, I didn't see Ahsoka, but the Obi-Wan series is one that I would also equate it to. It's just because it was so rough to watch, just on an emotional level. Not because it was bad, but because it was like, oh, wow, this is tough. Especially with the Obi-Wan finding Anakin in the end, and the contrast of the lightsabers and everything, him being like, you didn't kill me, I killed me. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah. That's good.
Truly Anakin is dead, and then, it leads into the New Hope and him talking about Vader and stuff like that. But yeah, I really like this show. I will continue to like this show.
So what would we
Very
give
disappointed.
each episode a rating? I know we didn't do that in the last episodes, but let's try to give, what was episode 7, out of 10 for you guys?
7?
Yeah, I was going to say a 7, 7.5, something like that.
I would say that, yeah.
Like,
but then
the weakest of the 3?
Yeah.
Probably.
But then episode 8.
10?
10.
Agreed.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10, for sure. What about
It touched
9?
on everything. 8.5.
I'd go 9.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say 9, yeah.
I'd agree with that. Just because it was kind of slow with just a lot of the talking and just not enough going with Mon Mothma's speech. I mean, it was, kind of bing bang boom a little bit, where them crushing the bug and getting through things, and her dismissing her assistant and blah blah blah, and then just from that point up until the speech, it was all what happened? I don't know.
I thought they did really good at just the tension,
tension was high.
because we knew the speech was going to happen, and then just even with the music is
They
building and building and building, and
they kept the tension, but it was just me just sitting there white knuckled when's the speech gonna happen? And then it happened, and I was like, ugh. And then they escaped, and I was like, oh, okay, well, of course they escaped because they both survive.
Yeah,
obviously.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was really good. I really liked all these 3. I liked the last 3 just because it was a lot of build up for what happened in these 3. I'm excited for the next 3. I mean, we could go another hour.
No, we can't. Was there something else you wanted to mention?
Yeah. So last week we argued about the ISB and Krennic, about how their operation on Gorman disintegrate the core of the planet. Do you remember talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did say that in the show. Yeah.
So the first episode of this week, episode 7, what's his name?
Partagaz. He said there will be nothing left.
He says we need what's in the ground, and when we are done, there won't be much left to call home.
Yeah, he said bad news Gorman.
So
yeah. Or bad luck Gorman. Yeah.
Basically, the planet will be uninhabitable.
Yeah. So you were right.
I was right.
Yeah. But they didn't say that before.
No, but
so you were wrong before until now.
Well, no, they
said something.
Yeah, they said that,
but it was up in the air.
Yeah, they weren't clear.
They said that in the meeting for when I was here, they said something like, if we mine this planet, like,
but they
it's not
didn't
going to be good for them.
specifically say it was because the planet would be uninhabitable or whatever.
Yeah.
They just implied that, like, once we're done,
Nobody's
like,
going to be happy.
This is going to be a really bad result.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I took that as
you
planet
assumed.
isn't going to be able to live on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you mine a
right.
planet's core, of course.
Yeah.
it's
Well, they
not
never
gonna
said
be-
anything about the core. They just
Yeah.
said we're mining calcite from the planet.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you mine anything, you're going to have fracking and you're going to have all that stuff, and it's going to poison the planet and everything's going to be dead.
I mean, not necessarily.
Well,
Doesn't happen to our planet.
in reality's sake, yeah, it happens to our planet
Our
all the
planet's
time.
big.
Well,
So is
our
theirs.
planet's the only planet that we mine on, that, as far as I know. But
So far.
yeah, so far we're looking at Mars. But yeah, it's bad luck, Gorman.
Yeah. Any other predictions?
Predictions, not necessarily. I did want to touch on Val's super unsatisfactory story arc thus far. Her girlfriend died, and then in these 3, she was just like, "Yeah, I'm part of the Yavin now," and Cassian's an asshole because he didn't take their promotion, and what's going on, Bix, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean,
So I mean, like, you didn't see her kind of resolve what happened with the guy who ultimately shot her girlfriend. I don't remember her name, Dinah or Dana or whatever. Cinta, sure. Sorry, I'm thinking Last of Us.
yeah, Dina.
Dina.
You got that wrong too.
Yep, I sure did.
I mean,
but-
we got that last conversation with her and that kid.
Yeah.
It was like really satisfying.
Yeah, well, it's less satisfying, but
Her
ultimately,
saying that he was an idiot.
ultimately, it wasn't a conclusion to that plot. Like, well, like it just kind of left it hanging in the air. Like, oh, you're gonna regret this. You're gonna need to repay this. You're gonna need to do this. And ultimately, where that kid repaid everything off was saving Cassian by ultimately killing K2 and then taking him back and saving Willman.
Yeah.
But
My guess is her fighting and things is too much for her to do.
mhm.
So she has to stay on Yavin and do new recruit stuff.
Okay.
That's how I took that.
Yeah, I mean, when she came to talk to Bix, didn't she say that she needed to take a break?
Yeah.
Yeah, she said, obviously
been a
between
year,
those 3, yeah, it had been a year. She was just like, I've been doing too much. I need to take a break, blah, blah, blah. And then
So that makes sense.
she found the blaster from the guy
Yeah, that
that
was
escaped
cool.
the prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he just kind of raised his hand, and yeah, that was just kind of the ending to
Well, we're gonna see him
that
again.
guy's story.
We see a
right,
scene
right, yeah.
in the
he's
trailer with him.
He's in
so-
Rogue One too.
Well, yeah, but we're gonna see him again.
And
He's in a battle in the
okay.
trailer. So
well, good.
yeah.
But
Yeah, maybe in the next 3, like, she'll have enough time to get over that thing, and then she'll be back.
maybe she could be the one that assassinates Luthen ultimately for essentially being super shitty to her. I don't know. It could be.
Maybe.
Another thing I want, 2 more things I wanted to touch on was
Just interrupt him.
What if Luthen doesn't die?
and he just escapes into the void and just keeps being himself. That could be that could be his happy ending, where he just keeps being a salesman on Coruscant and just like lives his life and just is happy, and you see his little smile or whatever, and keeps doing his thing or whatever.
Where he gets
And then-
arrested.
or he gets arrested
in
and hanged
prison
because he
forever.
Oh,
could
that'd be
have
interesting.
predicted his own fate from being hung.
Yeah.
Oh, that would
very well maybe.
That would be crazy.
That would be nuts for him, just like maybe being put into the plaza of the Senate or whatever, being like his hanging body or whatever.
Oh,
after Palpatine is like dissolves the Senate or whatever. That would be kind of cool. Oh, not cool, but that would be very interesting to see. Another thing I wanted to touch on was hoping to see more from Clea, Luthen's assistant.
She's
kind of
such a good actor.
More and more of her.
Yeah.
But we want more.
Yeah, I want to see her ultimate potential, because all we've seen from her is just communication.
Yeah,
and talking to Luthen, and
she had that
and that scene with the thing.
That was a really cool scene.
Yeah, it was,
and that was a really cool scene. But if that's ultimately her potential, it's a bummer, because she's been built up so much of being like, Luthen's assistant. Like, obviously she was put in this place for some reason, and if she's just ultimately just Luthen's assistant and did that one thing,
I mean, I would say she's more than his assistant. She's like the communications spy of the rebellion right now.
That's
for the most part.
Yeah,
and
she's been the key communications spy.
And I would say
for Luthen's side,
with how many characters are in this show, like everyone has been playing their roles to like as much as they can in the story, and like she's an example of that. Like, I don't think she's going to become like the hero of the show or anything. I don't think she would have anything more than what she's done.
No.
Yeah, just because she's a really cool character.
Because the show's called Andor. So.
Yeah. The end, they like tease a Clea show. Like, coming next year, fall of 2026, Clea.
Written by Tony Gilroy. You're going to have 5 seasons.
I mean, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
That would be sick.
Seeing her just sitting in the gallery, just rubbing her hands, waiting for something to happen.
Talking shit to everybody that comes in.
Yeah. Her being like, "Are you a spy?" No. Oh.
Then get out.
Yeah. Never mind. Look at this piece. Okay. Bye.
She just is so good at like roasting people.
Yeah, for sure. Just boiling people down to their basal, like everybody's like viewpoint of that person, being like, "You're a piece of shit." He's like, Luthen's like, "I know." And one small thing I wanted to touch on was Bix's, I think this was the last 3, but Bix's assassination moment. Just that quick, literally like 30 seconds of what that was, of, the doctor coming in and her being in the room, blasting him, and then going in, and then I think, was it Cassian that blasted that other dude? It was her. She just blasted another dude, which was such a complete contrast of what happened. Of her being like super drugged up and being like, "You killed that ATST dude," blah blah blah, and her just blasting the doctor and then just blasting that other dude.
Well,
just like,
I think the point was like she's still like a soldier in the rebellion, and like she was struggling with just sitting there doing nothing. And so then when Cassian goes and talks to Luthen, he's like, "Dude, I've been helping you for years now, and you're not helping me. Like, if Bix has a problem, you need to help us with it, and not, like blame us and like not,
Yeah.
Like,
we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, but he wasn't here. But
I think that
And so like he does, like Luthen gives them a mission, and the mission is killing the person that is giving her these nightmares and like causing all of this grief for her, and the PTSD and everything. So I think that was a really good conclusion to that. Like, it's not going to solve her PTSD, but it helps for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately why she just gets that happy ending of being like, I killed the doctor. Those are my nightmares. But then Wilman comes in and is like, here's Dedra. And then Cassian's like, okay, I'll take care of it, and doesn't. But he tried to. But
yeah, it was cool. There was a lot of tension there with them, like him, like keep like looking at her, and then like couldn't take the shot.
Yeah, it was. it was such a highlight for Cassian of him still being in the midst of all that chaos and all that genocide, of him still being like, okay, still got the target. I still gotta look out for her. Still gotta look out for her. And like, you know, blasting troops here and there and still looking out for her, still looking out for her. And then Cyril just comes in and blows that all up.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the best three, 7, 8, 9, the best three that we've seen so far is
definitely
with the cornerstone of it being ultimately satisfactory to a lot of people's stories. The ending of Cyril's story, the maybe ending of Dedra's story, the ending of Bix's story, maybe a turning point for Willman's story or whatever. Maybe he plays a bigger story later on, and ultimately the cornerstone of what happens to Cassian next.
Yeah,
because Bix is gone.
So now it's all
Willman's injured.
Looking forward to Rogue One.
Yeah, him being the person that we see in Rogue One, and that just preemptive, you know, preset to what happens.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
all good. I loved it. 10 out of 10. Would watch again.
Definitely.
20 years.
Yeah, so I guess that'll wrap us up. I do want to mention that Star Wars Explained has his review that is really, really good. He really points out the connections to like the current political climate and everything, and he words it so well and reiterates the fact that Star Wars has always been political and has always been a, like the term that you've been using this whole time, mirror to real life of like, and what we've said last time you were here with the whole like World War II, and like it's always been a mirror to current events or history of our world. And that's definitely true in these last 3 episodes and this show as a whole. So if you are interested in that, you should go watch his review because it is really, really good.
Yeah.
So other than that, you're not going to be here next week, are you?
I can be if you need me to.
I mean, you might as well.
Might as well.
To be the
last 3.
So we'll do a review of the whole show too.
Yeah, we'll cover the last 3 episodes, and then we'll do like a last like finishing thoughts and finishing review of the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be next week. We're gonna try to do it on Thursday. Are you free Thursday?
Sure. I can be.
But of course, as we've discovered this week, that could change at any time.
Yeah. I'll just keep all of next week open.
Yeah. So yeah, we will see you guys next week on that one then. You are listening to Galaxy Bound Podcast. We do monthly episodes talking about all things Star Wars. We'd greatly appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe or follow us on whatever platform you are watching or listening from. It helps us grow and reach more people. You can follow us on social media on basically every platform out there at Galaxy Bound TV, or check us out at our website at galaxybound.tv for links to them all. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Radiation. We're like, whoa. And then ultimately, he was like, yeah, I'm going to do this too.